who started this conversation about let's make it a movie and let's put it in cinema? Because like sometimes here in Brazil, people produce movies, but they release it on YouTube or release it on
Yeah.
TV, like like Hope Channel. So how was that conversation? How did that start?
Was there any
Mm.
pushback from the studio, the church that was producing it? I believe Hope Studios was the main
Yes.
production, right? Hope Studios did
Yeah.
it. So was there any like negotiations or politics or meetings to talk about this, or it was pretty solid? No, let's do this.
How long for the green light?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's interesting. So, the history of The Hopeful, it was filmed at the same time as Tell the World. So it sat in a safe for almost 10 years waiting to raise finances to do it, right? So it's a very, very, it was always designed, like even when it was shot at the same time, it was designed for a commercial, public-facing theatrical release, which is why when you see it, it looks like it was designed for cinema, right? Because it was, whereas Tell the World wasn't. Tell the World was designed as a 6-part episodic television series. So it doesn't look and feel like cinema, and it doesn't operate like that because that's not what it was designed for. And so it's interesting because cinema's it's a heavy lift to get there, and there's no guarantee you're going to. But if you don't make the decision to go, we want this to go to cinema from the get-go. So when we filmed it at the same time, those takes were shot slightly differently, right? So if there's scenes that exist in Tell the World that also exist in The Hopeful, which they're, on balance actually aren't that many, they were shot very differently. They were treated with just a different visual eye because of that, because there's just more detail. There's more screen space for a start, just like the sheer territory of composition that you have to think about is just bigger and wider. There's just more information that you've got to be aware of as you're looking through the monitor out there. So yes, it was, but it wasn't until we kind of got to the end of post-production, and we'd had quite a number of like really amazing things come off, which you can never factor in. It's just these are the providence side kicking in, right? And so we kind of had a few big wins, particularly on the color grading side. So Brett Manson, who color graded Elvis for Baz Luhrmann, The King, which was a fabulous Netflix film if you've never seen it, with Timothée Chalamet and Joel Edgerton. Probably one of my favorite films of the last 10 years, actually.
Wow.
Beautiful. I mean, it looks absolutely stunning. And Brett coming on board at the time that he did, and even been available at that moment, and going, yeah, I actually really like this film, Kyle. I'd love to work on it. It just changed the game, because it takes your film from being visually good to being visually great. Like it takes it to another level, because he's able to do things and manipulate that image in a way. He's one of the top 5 colorists on the planet at the moment. So that makes a huge difference to the experience that someone has going into the cinema. Conversely to that, we had a lot of the people on sound post-production who had just worked on Jane Campion's Power of the Dog, had just come off Mad Max Fury Road, and then we're all prepping for Mad Max Furiosa. So, like, how hilarious is that? So you
Yeah.
in the same year of post, so that was in the end of 2022. They rolled off The Hopeful, and literally the next week in the mixing suite went straight on to the premix of Furiosa. So, I mean, you couldn't really go any further afield, really, could you? From like the hopeful origin story of Adventists to, Armageddon. Although maybe those two do like track on a time. Who knows? They might track well on a timeline. But yeah, so from that side of it, working with Hope Studios, I mean, no pushback at all. They were, we partnered on that together in a way that Adventists haven't really done before. Like, normally films like this are made in-house and kind of directed and guided by the in-house. This was more of a situation where my production company was directing and guiding, with obviously the support and influence of Hope Studios, but we did that more of a partnership. It was very consultative. There was a lot of trust between my 3 executive producers from Hope Studios and my 3 producers on the production side. So it was a really well set up process, and everyone was very open-minded to it. They were like, well, look, if it looks like the opportunity's there and we've made the thing at this quality level that it can sit on a cinema screen and compete with studio pictures, great, let's go for it, right? So yeah, it was never I don't think we ever had one conversation about whether or not going to cinema was going to be controversial. It never actually even came up until you started getting people going, can we go to cinema, during the marketing campaign for a cinema release that was already going,
Yeah.
and then we were like, oh, I guess we have to deal with this now,
Oh yeah.
Because for no other reason other than, I don't believe that it should be an issue. So I think if you start off with the mindset of how do we deal with this, you're kind of giving energy to something that shouldn't be a big deal.
Yeah.
Right. Whether that was a good way of approaching it or not, who knows? But, again, I just think we have to get over this fallacy that there is any imperative on us to not go to cinema to watch things. I think it's actually negative. It's actually a negative culturally, and it's a negative for our ability to talk to the wider community about big issues, because big issues are what cinema is all about. If you watch Oppenheimer or Barbie, they're no more or less preachy than any other film that comes out, right? They have something that they want to say. That filmmaker has something that they want to say. And I just think we're missing an opportunity if we don't operate in that space.